Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how, well, maybe the reason why we haven't gotten a Nintendo Direct for the original Switch in February as we typically do is not just because Nintendo is moving on to the Switch 2 and we're going to have our big Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, but also maybe because they are planning something for Mario's 40th anniversary, and yes, a lot of these things may tie into the Nintendo Switch 2, like Mario Kart and 3D Mario, but also maybe some of it will tie into Mario Day on March 10th, which will have something to do with Switch 1 as well. And that's what I want to get into today. But before going forward, let me take this moment to point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. So I'm going to assume that there's going to be some people in the comments suggesting that this is a goalpost moving situation, because we were hoping to see a Direct in February, that did not happen, and so now we're jumping into March. And I can understand that perspective to a degree. A lot of us did think a Direct would happen in February, and one did not happen, so now we're talking about the possibility of March. But it's kind of one of those things where, as more evidence presents itself, you have to change your opinion. Like, obviously, at this point, a Direct's not going to happen in February. But this part still remains to be the case. The main reason why I thought there should be some kind of news in the month of February outside of the Pokemon Presents is because Nintendo needs to make announcements about games coming to Switch 1 after Xenoblade Chronicles X releases on March 20th. And when you also think about that the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is on April 2nd and all these Switch 2 Experience events are happening through April and May and even June, that's going to be the period of time where Nintendo marketing for Switch 2 is going to kick into overdrive. We're going to see a whole bunch of advertisements, press events, media stuff, previews. There's going to be so much focus on Switch 2 and Nintendo's next generation, it's not going to really make sense to have a big presentation about Switch 1 during that period of time. So, if Nintendo does not make announcements for Switch 1 before April 2nd, what does that say about what they have left for Switch 1? We just got a Pokemon Presents, and in there, they could have given us something that could be coming relatively soon for Switch 1, but that's anything but the case. There were two games, Pokemon Champions, which is awesome, I'm very excited for it, but there's no release date. I don't even think it's coming out this year, because if it was, they probably would have said that. I'm personally speculating that this game will come out early next year. And then Pokemon Legends ZA, a game that we all thought might come out a little bit earlier into the year, is actually coming out late 2025. Now apparently when you look at the Japanese version of the Legends ZA trailer, it actually doesn't say late 2025, but fall 2025. And so that would suggest that maybe we don't have to wait all the way until December, and really it could be sometime in that season of September, October, November. So maybe it comes out a bit sooner, but the fact of the matter is, it's not coming out soon. It's not coming out in summer. There are no imminent published Nintendo titles coming to Switch 1 after Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And so some of you might say, well, okay, this is the end of Switch. Nintendo is moving on to Switch 2. They don't really need to put out more games for Switch 1. And I also understand this to a degree. In less than a week, we are going to hit the 8-year anniversary for Nintendo Switch. The lifespan of Switch has been lengthy, much longer than pretty much any other console generation, and the amount of momentum that Switch 1 still has at this point is remarkable. And it should also be considered that the initial reports about Switch 2 were that it was going to come out last year. And so assuming all those reports are true, then it would mean that Nintendo did indeed have a delay. They had plans for a release last year, and the kind of Switch 1 games we've gotten over the last half year or so, like Echoes of Wisdom, Mario Party Jamboree, perhaps they were going to spread out those games a little bit more, and they would have released alongside different Switch 2 games throughout last year and this year, but because Switch 2 was delayed, a lot of those games had to be pushed into 2024. That is an argument that could be made. It's hard to prove one way or the other, but if that is the case, then maybe the amount of support Switch 1 would have seen going into the Switch 2 generation, well, has dropped because they had to wait for Switch 2, so they just put out a lot of their Switch 1 projects before that point. And so maybe Nintendo is just simply okay with not supporting Switch 1 that much with their own games. Donkey Kong still came out in January, Xenoblade is still coming out in March, and we know Pokemon's coming out in late 2025 or fall 2025, and of course there's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond that's supposed to fit in at some point. But with everything considered, I do not think it is enough to support Switch 1 with just 4 published Nintendo titles, 2 remasters, and 2 new games. Maybe you want to argue that they're going to slow down their support going into the Switch 2 generation. I agree with that. We're already not getting a game for February, that part's evident, and the kind of releases we've been getting on Switch for the last year and a half or so have been games that are mostly remasters, or at least are not of the highest budget, highest caliber kind of games. Clearly Nintendo has been saving most of their resources for the Switch 2 generation. But that doesn't mean there can't be some more remasters announced. Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are rumored to come to Nintendo Switch 1. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have been rumored for years. Will they ever come? We're not sure. But then there's also the rumors of Fire Emblem Remake and Kirby Planet Robot. These different games have been rumored from incredible places, not just random 4chan posts or what have you. And so the overwhelming thought is that most of these games are going to come to Switch 1 before it's all said and done. And when you also take into consideration that Nintendo has not even dropped the price of Switch 1, and from their last investors meeting they said they have no current plans to do so, to me that suggests that they're not even that close to the end of Switch, because so many prior consoles saw multiple price drops by this point, and Switch 1 has not even seen one. And Switch 1 also has more sales momentum than prior consoles this late into the respective generations. Yes, Switch 1 has been trending down year by year, but it's still a significant part to Nintendo's overall financials. So to just stop supporting it with games at this point, I think is very unlikely. You look at how Nintendo handled the 3DS, there were published Nintendo titles coming out until 2019. Switch came out early 2017, just to put that into perspective here. So yes, I still expect that there will be announcements of Nintendo published titles coming to Switch 1. There may just be a few remasters, it probably won't be every single month that they come out. Yes, I agree there will be less, but currently there still needs to be more in my opinion. And so, with there being no Direct in February, with there being no release in February, with nothing slated for beyond March 20th, the day Xenoblade Chronicles X comes out, and the Switch 2 campaign starting on April 2nd, I think something needs to happen in this month of March. Enter Mario Day. Mario Day is on March 10th, and oftentimes for Mario Day, Nintendo will have some type of announcement or acknowledgement of the day. Last year, on a Sunday, a day Nintendo doesn't really make announcements because it's the weekend, they still had some relatively significant announcements. They gave us the release dates for Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. And so might there be something that Nintendo has up their sleeves for March 10th? I'm starting to think that there might be a decent chance here, and it might actually somewhat explain why we did not see a Direct in February, because maybe they decided to save their announcements that would be tying into Mario Day with a Switch 2 Direct that would have other Switch 1 announcements we're waiting for March 10th, which, by the way, falls on a Monday this time, a day that could see some type of announcements like this. And we do expect that Nintendo is going to celebrate the 40th anniversary for Mario. Every 5 years, Nintendo has a big celebration for Mario, the 35th, the 30th, they did all that stuff. If you guys remember, there was a Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, they had 3D All-Stars, they had Mario Kart Live Circuit, they had Mario 99, they had Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, and more. And so for the 40th anniversary, it falling in the Switch 2 launch year, us getting close to the marketing campaign for the Mario movie given that it's coming out early next year, and we now know about Mario Kart and expect 3D Mario, clearly things are aligning here for a big Mario 40th anniversary celebration. It makes sense and they can use this to help propel the beginning of their Switch 2 generation. But when we take a look at the 35th anniversary for Mario, they did not tell us about all of their anniversary plans on Mario Day back in 2020. They waited until September of that year to make a whole bunch of announcements surrounding that event. So I'm not here trying to say that on March 10th we're going to see a whole bunch of announcements regarding Mario titles having to do with Switch 1 and Switch 2. I think that big things like Mario Kart 3D Mario will not be mentioned at all until April 2nd. But Nintendo might acknowledge that they do have 40th anniversary plans officially by this point, and there may be some announcements that tie into Switch 1. Say for example, they announced Mario Galaxy 2 coming to Nintendo Switch 1. That is a game that would sell really well, it is a remaster, it would require minimal effort, and it would help maintain momentum of the console while tiding us over until Switch 2 comes out. This is something that they can maybe include in a Mario Day presentation. But at the same time, if this Mario Day presentation is more so just an Nintendo Direct that has some Mario Day announcements, then they can also include other Switch 1 announcements we have been waiting for, and this would also include third-party offerings as well. Now, I don't want to go so far as saying that this is a prediction. There's a very good chance that Mario Day will just have something even smaller. It may not even be a game-related announcement. It might be some sort of merchandising or something like that, and really that's all it is. And if that's the case, I will still think that some type of announcement should happen for Switch 1. Maybe it's not in the form of a Direct, maybe it's just a social media announcement of Kirby Planet Robot coming to Switch 1 in a month or two, but I do think something should happen before April 2nd. But of course, as we get ever closer to that Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, it becomes harder and harder to believe that Nintendo will have something to announce for Switch 1 right before that event. But March 10th, that's still a few weeks away from the event. That's also still some time before Xenoblade Chronicles X comes out. So there's still reason to think that there can be announcements. And just thinking about Xenoblade Chronicles X, that is a fairly large release that's coming out on March 24th, basically a week before the Switch 2 event. And they're going to be marketing that game right before the big Switch 2 Direct. So there can still be news coming from Nintendo right before. But I do think it does make sense to have some announcements earlier in the month of March than later, assuming anything is going to happen. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.